Welcome back to Sunday Live, and we're still in our talk studio and happy to host tonight two men who are seeking the governor's seat for this amazing city, Nairobi, a hub, an economic hub and a critical one for not just the region but the African continent. Welcome to our studio, Dr. Evans Kidero, Ferdinand Waititu. Glad to have you both here with us. Let's go straight into this. And my first question to you both, if you were elected governor, what would your agenda for Nairobi be? What would you do for Nairobi? I'll start with you, Dr.
Thank you very much, Julie, and thank you very much. Is it Ferdinand or Clifford?
Both are
There we go, the gloves are already off.
I don't know. I'm not too sure who we have
You're
in the studio
speaking
tonight.
I'll allow you to respond to that. Is it Clifford or Ferdinand,
Both
or
of
is it
them.
Ferdinand,
Both.
Clifford, Waititu?
Both are mine.
It's both. Okay.
But Julie, let me start, and I think for the whole evening, you've shown quite a lot of violence happening in Kisumu, happening in Nairobi. But I would like to thank the ODM members who voted for me on Thursday. And I think probably went very, very well. It went very, very well. Except today, there were a little bit of issues because I and my team decided to help the election board in distributing the certificates. And obviously, you know, there's normally a lot of tension when that happens, especially people who were expecting to get their certificate, but they didn't. But by and large, I think 80% got their certificates through the nominated members of parliament, but probably the less than 20% who probably expected to get but did not get, we did return the certificates back to the election board. And mine is just to say that, I mean, it's gone well in Nairobi. Let's keep the peace. I know you're going to bring it a little bit later.
I will. But Dr. You've gone on this note of the nomination, so I have to come to you on this. You say, you know, a little bit of problems. It's been hugely problematic, and even today on the streets of Nairobi, in certain parts of this, we've had of this amazing city, we've had people demonstrating, tires being burnt on the road, and this is specifically with respect to the ODM nomination process. So very quickly, what's gone wrong?
I think, I mean, there were basically logistical issues. You can imagine covering the whole country, thousands of people. By and large, I think the ODM election board has done a fantastic job, because if there is over 80%. But even the few cases probably that did not go well, I mean, you've seen our chairman Bet saying that yes, there could have been a few problems, but they are addressing them, and their mechanisms and their processes of addressing them. And I believe they're working right around the clock to resolve wherever there were issues.
Okay, Dr. I'm going to come back to you. I mean, you know, giving a pat on the back to the ODM elections board right now seems to be overly generous. It's been a hugely challenging process, and the country has had to sit and watch this. And I think even people who are not in the party are concerned about the way things are going. I'll come back to you, Ferdinand. Let me bring you in here now, because really we're here to talk about the position of governor of Nairobi. And my question to you stands: what's your agenda as governor of this city if you were elected?
First, Julie, I would like to thank you so much for calling me to this studio. And secondly, I would also like to thank all TNM members in Nairobi for electing me. And also thank the party officials for conducting our elections in such a transparent manner, and in a manner that eventually it appeared to be free and fair. And Julie,
before you continue, I'll just point out also some issues with TNA, but certainly not to the same extent as ODM. But let's go to the governor issue, gentlemen. Now, I don't want to push you along from this nomination debacle to move on to the governor issue.
First and foremost, I would like to remind you that I have been in the public service from a councillorship. I was a deputy mayor of this city. I have been an MP. I have what I can show that I have done for the people.
What have you achieved so far as an MP?
When I was a deputy mayor, I actually did some lighting in Nora and in some parts of Kayole. I also started some schools and some two dispensaries when I was still a councillor.
And
Then
these are schools that
as an
you-
MP, I've put up 11 secondary schools in Embakasi.
This is building the schools, setting them up,
Yes,
establishing
exactly. And also 6 new primary schools. And what is also surprising to tell you actually is that it is from grabbed land. I recovered those pieces of land and started schools. I've also been very instrumental in starting the Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital. I'm the one who looked for that piece of land. There are also 4 maternity hospitals, one in Ruai, Njiru, Dandora, and also the hospital in Mukuru Kwajenga.
This is your track
This
record.
is what I can show I've done.
Yes.
And considering that Embakasi is a third of Nairobi.
Let's talk about your agenda.
Yes.
So, for instance, what would your focus be? And I see Daktari jumping in here, coming to you in just a moment.
Yeah.
What would your focus be? Is it the economy? Is it, you've talked about education? So, is that a priority?
First I'll make sure that every Nairobian is enjoying the basic facilities like sewerage, water, roads, security lighting at night, and also schools. Some areas have no schools, like Kibera, there are no schools, there are no toilets. I'll make sure that all Nairobians first are enjoying the basic facilities. I'll also make sure that I create employment for our youths and the mothers that do not have anywhere to go, by making sure that in every area we have markets that people can at least go to do business. I'll also make sure that the small businesses that do not have a stock of more than 2 million are not paying any licenses. So that anybody who is starting off a new business can easily go to the market.
Okay, so you're looking at small businesses, you're saying markets to get young people busy and employed, and removing the taxes.
Yeah, and the bottlenecks and the bureaucracy that is involved in our
setting
licenses.
up of a business.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me come to you, Daktari. Your agenda for
Thank
the
you very
city
much,
of
Julie. I
Nairobi.
mean, it's nice to hear Clifford talk about the things that he'll be able to do. Is that Mirsi was there for as a councillor, deputy mayor, and finally member of parliament. And he hasn't quite said what is it that he's going to do any different than he did it before. But let's come back to Nairobians have 2 problems: the basic hygiene factors. You remember we used to say Nairobi was a city in the sun. Now is a brown city under garbage, and at times, most times, is you find sewer flowing everywhere. One day somebody was describing Nairobi as city under shit.
Oh.
Yeah. And you know that probably 80% of Nairobians live in informal settlements. One, I mean, we need to have a comprehensive development plan for the city. The first one was done in 1927. The next one was done in 1948. The third one was done in 1963. And the last one was done in 1973. And all these development plans did not reflect the reality, because when Nairobi started in 1895, Africans were never meant to live in Nairobi. It was supposed to be whites. The Indians who were building the railway, and they stopped here when Sir George Whitehouse decided to take a rest, and the few administrative clerks who were supposed to help them. And Clifford or Ferdinand will tell you that in terms of even budgeting, the informal settlements don't get any budget. The budgets go to Kilimani, the budgets go to Loresho, the budgets go to the recognized upmarket races.
So what would you propose?
So I'm going to do one.
Be? Yes.
A comprehensive development plan. 2, the common hygiene factors. Get garbage off our roads. Seal the potholes. We have 2,000 kilometers of road. That's not sufficient. But even that 2,000 kilometers of roads needs to be motorable. The third thing is security. I'm sure you don't go to certain parts of the city, and even the parts where you go, and in the estates, the insecurity is so bad. And I'm sure you know that this word getter. People get gettered everywhere. The ladies are scared. I mean, we'll need to address this whole issue of security. 2, 1 is the ratio of police to 1 inch is not sufficient. We have 1 policeman to 1,150 Nairobians. The internationally accepted standard is 1 to 450. One would ask, how are you going to do it? We have 2,000 askaris in the city inspectorate department. Actually, what we'll do is to revitalize that department and change it into a metropolitan police. But even the police departments, could I just finish?
Yeah,
the
yes.
police departments in the city, half of them are not in uniform. The other half are managing traffic.
Resources and capacity.
Yeah, they don't need to do that. We need to get everybody, and it's been established that when you see policemen in uniform, the rate of crime goes down.
I'll be back with you.
Could I just finish?
Very quickly, yes, go ahead.
Very, very quickly.
Yes.
The third thing he talked about education. We have 222 primary schools, public primary schools, but we have 194 informal primary schools that are registered by the Ministry of Culture. And even in the public primary schools, the ratio of teacher to student is 1 to 6 to 8, double the number. So
What
we
do
need
you
to double the
propose?
number of teachers
Double
or
the
double
number
the
of
number of.
teachers?
So we need to double the number of public primary schools. We have 85 public secondary schools. We need to, actually we should have 1 day secondary school to every 2 primary school, at the very minimum, to 1.5 to 2 primary schools.
We are losing a lot of children in,
Yeah.
in the system
In the
between
system.
primary
So the
school
dropout is
and
very
secondary
high.
school.
They changed the polytechnic into a university. So as standard 8
and
and
form
form
4,
4,
there's a dropout.
there is nowhere they can go.
Okay.
We need to build another polytechnic.
Coming back to you,
Yes.
coming back to you on that. Let me come to you, Ferdinand, and let's go to Ferdinand Clifford Waititu, the man. So you've given us some of your track record and some of the things you've done as an MP and also as a public servant. But the question that I'll ask you, some people would look at you and say, is Waititu capable of running a metropolitan city like Nairobi? Can this man do it? Who is Ferdinand Clifford Waititu, and can he run a city like Nairobi?
First and foremost, I know that many people actually do not understand me, but I'm simple. Waititu is one person that is an achiever. And what we are lacking in Nairobi is simple. People who can make sure that we have no rat grabbing in Nairobi and there is no corruption in our institutions in Nairobi. Somebody who can stand firm and implement programs in Nairobi. Because we have had all the researches done. And that is why personally I strongly believe there is no rocket science in dealing with the problems that we have in Nairobi. What we require is somebody who can come and actually also understand the problem. Because like now, he's talking about education. It's true. But what changes are we coming with? Personally, I want to change the system. Such education system in Nairobi, such that the kids that do standard 8 exam, naturally, if 100 students do the exam, 50 of them go to secondary. The other 50, somewhere drops out of schooling.
Drop out of the system.
And those people there, the boys go to the streets. The ladies also somewhere, they start getting married, pregnancies, and they eventually become...
Actually, they rarely get married. They
But
very
what I
often
want
get
personally,
pregnant.
because I understand that one as a big problem, I want to make sure that when exams are done in class 8, we have the ones who perform the best go to Form 1A. The ones who perform a little bit down, Form 1B. The other ones, Form 1C. Such that all of them will go up to Form 4. So that when all the kids leave Form 4, they will be mature enough to know that they are supposed to deal with.
So you're trying to keep them in secondary school?
In secondary school,
what?
so that they mature in secondary school, and also making sure that we don't have as many dropouts as possible, because they do not only drop out because they did not pass. It's also because of school fees.
Right.
And that is, to me, is a basic problem.
Okay, there's some educationists that would comment on your strategy.
Yes.
So I won't go.
Julie,
into
could I just because I think
you can jump in just a moment, because there's one more question I need to put to Ferdinand before I come to
no,
you.
because I think we lose a point. The county governments are not going to education is still going to be run centrally by the central government.
Right.
So whatever we build in Nairobi and has been, what we're providing is the resourcing and the support.
Right.
But
Another question.
But honestly speaking, what personally I understand is that what is all about devolution.
Yes, but
Devolution, let me tell you, Julie, is that you deal with the local problems. That is why members of the county...
There are some areas, there are some ministries that will still handle the national...
maybe,
yes, and before I leave you, there's one critical question, because you've got a certain style of leadership, Ferdinand, and people have seen you on the streets, rough and rugged, you know, out there throwing stones in some instances, roughing up a few people. Is that the kind of leadership that we can expect from the governor?
Let me tell you, Julie. Some of the problems you have seen me handling in some manner that maybe is not very present is of the way they come themselves, the problem, the way they have come. Because like now, about 50% of Embakasi people live in informal settlements and slums. And where they have built, sometimes, and in most of the cases, the land belongs to some other people. And when they come to try and evict them, in a manner that it is inhuman, I have to stand by my people.
So you're saying sometimes you have to get rough and rugged.
And if that, to me, if that looks like I'm not behaving properly, I normally say that what matters to me is what my people, what will eventually happen to my people, because when they elected me, I have to put their interests
you
first.
Represent them. Let me come to you, Daktari, and there's a question and it links in. And whereas I've spoken about Waititu and his style, you have some perceptions associated with you. Former chief executive officer, somebody who perhaps is not so in touch with the Mwananchi on the ground. In fact, the exact opposite, perhaps, of what Waititu is. And let me use the word a little bit elitist. So my question to you, Daktari, can you get the ordinary Mwananchi to vote for you?
Julie, thanks. But before maybe answer that question, I would just like to address two issues on education, because Ferdinand doesn't seem to understand that the county, Nairobi County, will only be responsible for ECD, the early childhood education, and the post-secondary school education. That's where they'll have what you call a virgin role. So probably you might want to get your team to look at the constitution, all the roles and responsibilities of the governor is going to be. Then the second thing I think he did comment about the style and the rule of law. And I think as a governor, we will be legislating and we will be enforcing, and we cannot afford to take the laws into let me just finish, into our hands. And there's this whole issue of land, and most of the land in Nairobi is leasehold. And there are conditions to leasehold. If you do not do certain things within a certain time, then that land should revert back to government for reallocation. So I think the major thing that we're going to do, and I think it started, is looking at the land policy. Okay. There is the new lands commission that is going to, and us as governors, and particularly for Nairobi, where 60% of the gross domestic product is, where 42 tribes of Kenya is, the capital city where the UN is, where there are more than 200 multinational companies. People will only come and invest here if they know that the rule of law reigns supreme.
Right. Let me come to you to respond to that, Waititu. Two things. He's saying that
I
you're
haven't
not
answered
familiar.
who I am.
No, I'll come back to that because he needs a chance to respond to what you've said. Number one, that you're not familiar with the role of the governor and the governor's the institution. And number two, that you may not respect the rule of law. How do you respond to what Daktari is saying?
As far as rule of law is concerned, we must look at the facts as they are. We have a lot of land grabbing of public utilities in Nairobi. Mwariro Market, just opposite Riverside, was grabbed. It was a market of about 5,000 people. Isili Market was grabbed. It was sold. You remember very well Uhuru Market had been sold. And when there is laws in this country, when there are laws,
processes.
Yes, and it was grabbed. According to me, there are people here who circumvent the law to suit them. And what I want personally to change in Nairobi is that in future, people should be fearing to take something just because even if they can circumvent the law, but then they will not run away with it. That is, I want to instill discipline.
It's radical.
No, let me tell you.
Yes. Who has grabbed this land?
Let me tell you.
Yes.
He's
Who
here.
grabbed this land?
Hold
Let
on,
me tell
hold
you.
on, gentlemen.
grabbed by
Let me
councillors
tell you.
and,
If people succeed grabbing the land,
Yes.
and they go with it,
Gentlemen, hold on.
There is
What-
a
what-
market,
what
there's
is-
that high-ridge dispensary.
Yes.
Somebody grabbed the hospital. He even demolished the hospital, and it is a reality.
Let's hold on. Let's hold it for a minute,
Yeah.
Ferdinand. And what's happening clearly at home, and I think you can see this is a completely different style of leadership here. One is a little bit more radical, one is a little bit more laid back, and perhaps you're making your own judgment about what you feel you need for Nairobi. But I need to come back to the question that I asked you, Evans, which referred to the whole perception that while Ferdinand is perhaps rough and rugged and a man on the ground, that you are elitist and out of touch with the people. And can you get the average Kenyan mwananchi in Nairobi to look at you and say, I'll vote for this
Julie,
guy?
I think the term the elitist is misplaced. I was born in the slums. I was born in Majengo. My parents don't speak English. They're still alive. Fortunately, I know my father and mother, and I look like my father. So any connotations that people might want to bring because this is a boy of Majengo probably does not arise.
But do you still relate? Do you still relate to them, to people on
And
the
I
ground?
have come. I have from the very bottom to the very top, and my life is very basic. And I have been to Nairobi through all the estates, the 844 villages. I've got relatives in everywhere. Actually, I've got very few relatives who live in the upmarket, upmarket estates. And having trained as a pharmacist, I worked in the medical world, which is mainly in the underprivileged and developed, both in Kenya, in East Africa, and Africa, because one time I was a managing director for 40 African countries with offices both here and Lagos. And probably, I know Lagos has got probably the biggest tin city in the world. So yes, and one just needs to go down to the informal settlements and ask them who Kidero is. They'll tell you who he is because I'm always there. And what amazes me, and basically two problems. One is Nairobi's backward. When we got independence in 1963, our GDP per capita was higher than Singapore. 50 years later, Singapore is 40 times higher than Kenya. The only difference between Singapore and Kenya is management and governance. And I know that Clifford Elias Ferdinand
You're not stopping the digging, huh? But he says they're both his names.
talked about people grabbing. This is all about governance. You need to get people who have good management principles, no conflict of interest. Grabbing of land, schools, markets is conflict of interest. We know this has been done by his colleagues whom he was working with in City Hall, people whom he's with, whom he has been with in Parliament. We do know that his colleagues, I have no evidence, garbage is what it is because people who have conflict of interest are the ones who are collecting garbage.
Now,
and Mr. Waititu, the second thing is
you need to
we know
very quickly because
we know that there's
up.
no water. You know that in Kibera, water costs 20 times what it costs in Kilimani. But it's deliberate because the people who supply water to Kibera is a business. They wouldn't want any. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with people doing business, but there's everything wrong by keeping people's standards of living low
or
because others have
exploiting community.
Yeah.
Please come into that. Daktari says that it's the people that you've worked with in councils who are grabbing the land. And so what are your thoughts on what he's saying and taking advantage of situations across the city?
First and foremost, I know that some of the issues that you see in this country is because of the increase in population and poverty also. Because I stayed in Kibera for about 25 years. And during that time, the population there was lesser than what it is now. But the facilities have not increased. Therefore, according to me, as a first step, we should give Kibera people sewerage, water, roads, lighting. We give them schools, so that first and foremost, they start living a normal life. Right now, there are no toilets in Kibera. There are still frying toilets in Kibera. And those people cannot wait for a modern city so that they start. Why don't we give them immediately? That is what my governorship will be all about.
Gentlemen.
First, we take care of the basic necessities. I'll also make sure that this stigma of people living in fear because there will be demolitions. In my governorship, there will be no demolition at all for slums. I'll make sure that I give them proper documents for the pieces of land where they are built, so that they can live comfortably like any other Nairobian, and they can be focused on developing where they have built.
This land issue is a key issue, not
Yes.
just for Nairobi, but
Yes.
across this country of ours.
Yes.
And this is something we perhaps need to take up in more detail to understand exactly how you propose to
Yes.
deal with that. How do you propose in a legal way to get hold of these instruments of ownership for the people of Nairobi? We soon will need to come to an end, but before we do that, I want to give each of you the opportunity to ask each other a question.
Julie, I mean, you haven't given me sufficient time.
You have more to say.
If I compare the times you've given us, I think we haven't touched one thing.
I think if you compare times, you'll find it's fairly even. But go ahead. Go ahead.
I said two things. I mean, there were the hygiene issues that Nairobi needs to deal with, but there's also strategic development issues that Nairobi needs to deal with, and this requires a manager. This requires somebody with a strategic orientation. How are we going to attract investment? Nairobi is at the epicenter within 5 hours of every other African capital city, and within 8 hours of the major capital cities in the world. Actually, it is a communication hub. Very ideal.
Yes.
Why aren't we attracting as much? We are attracting less investment than Rwanda, than Burundi, than Tanzania, and than Uganda. We need to answer that question. And I think probably I know the answer. Let me just...
Having said that, Dr. let me just point out that already quite a number of headquarters are being set up here, and even moving from South Africa to come in and set up here as a major hub. So I think already there is some... there is some progress being made. The question perhaps is how to harness that.
Actually, the progress that is being made is less than the progress that is being made in the countries that I've mentioned. The second thing, our biggest problem in this country is tribalism. And for me, it makes me sad. I was born in this town. I went to Mango High School. I went to Nairobi University. I worked all over Africa. And tribes do not make sense to me. But you find times, like it comes about this time of elections. And my friend here, you remember the time when he was telling Masais to go back? I think that's very unfortunate. Yeah, we need to build a city that is dynamic and will hold all Kenyans, irrespective of where they come from.
Ferdinand, let me come back to you now on that issue of ethnicity and cohesion and the whole incident that happened around the comments that were made by yourself. Let's talk about that. What are your
Actually, it's good that he has mentioned that, because I went to Kayole at around 10 o'clock, and the violence had started in the morning at around 6 o'clock. A boy had been murdered, and people were rioting there because of those people who had done that. When I went there myself, I said in very plain words that those people who do not possess IDs and they are from a neighboring country, they should be registered somewhere, so that when they commit an offense, at least there is a way of tracking them. But right now, what happens? Any offense that is committed by a foreigner and does not possess any identification, when he just beats one corner, the whole issue ends there. And according to the issue of the Maasai, where it came from, is when I said that those people who refuse to be registered by the local police or the DO or the chief should we should know that they will perform some offences in future and they will run away, and therefore they should not be staying amongst us. Then my speech was edited.
Let me ask
to
you
mean,
this. Yes.
just wait, it was edited to mean that only that part that I don't want Masai. But if you read the whole script, it's completely different.
You're explaining your
Julie,
logic,
just a
but
minute.
yes.
And to make the matter worse, so that you can read the mischief in that whole saga, they said that after my speech, 3 Masais were killed, which was a lie. Nobody died. And I'm the one who quelled the whole chaos. So according to me,
Julie, I mean,
before you come in,
Julie, that is why I had the guts to go to court. I took NTV to court on malicious damage, because they are the ones who caused the whole saga.
So you are saying that the media created the situation.
Yes.
Are you saying that your statements in no way could have incited violence?
The whole script, if you listen to it, you'll be very surprised. I had a very good speech but you know, actually.
But we all saw you say certain things and it
Yes.
went on air.
Yes.
So the simple question, could that have created an environment of violence and discord? And did it indeed contribute to that in any way?
That the ones who showed it on telly wanted to, it was calculated so that Waititu can be seen to have spoken words that would cause ethnic tension. And therefore, Waititu does not deserve to be a leader. But the people on the ground who are there, because I said it in front of so many people, they know the facts. Because, let me tell you, Julie, you can say anything about somebody, but if there are those people who know what he said, it will only cause some problems to those who don't know. But the people on the ground, they were with me on the issue.
Come in on this, Dr.
What I'm trying to say that as leaders, let's stop making inflammatory statements. Statements that could bring tension, more particularly when elections are approaching, and I know we're going to talk about that to appeal that people have peace. But also, let's stop stereotyping, because this stereotype that if somebody wears buibui or a kanzu, then there must be Al-Qaeda or Al-Shabaab. If there is, because I mean, a crook is a crook, a criminal is a criminal, irrespective of whether they're blue, white, yellow, green, or white, or whether they come from Western Kenya, Northern Kenya, Southern Kenya, or Tanzania. So if a crime has been committed, we deal with a crime. Let's not stereotype, because this is probably what causes us as a nation to continue to be apart.
It certainly is. Gentlemen, at this point, I want to really ask you to wind up with a statement to the nation at this time when we've seen burning tires on the streets, we've seen some stones, we've seen unpleasant scenes throughout this nomination exercise. You are seeking leadership of a critical city, not just in this country, not just in the region, but in the African continent. As people who are seeking this leadership, what message do you have for the people of this nation ahead of the elections? I'm going to start with you, Dr.
Julie, we are sisters and brothers. We are Kenyans. We love our country so much. We love each other so much. And what we need to do is to continue living in peace. Elections come and go, but Kenya will stay. And the interests of Kenyans should always stay supreme. So we should, if there are issues, we debate them. If there are corrections, we make them. But let's live in peace. Let's have a peaceful election.
Thank you so much for that.
Julie, I wanted first to say that governorship is a very, very important position in Nairobi and in all the counties. But when we are talking about the governorship, we are also supposed to talk about the governed, the ones to be governed. You cannot just govern. You are not governing the buildings. You are governing people. And therefore, for a governor to work effectively, he must understand the needs of the people. He must be a tested person as far as serving people is concerned, because serving people is a public service. There is a commitment. And therefore, according to me...
My question to you now is, yes, what is your message to those people and the wider Kenya public?
That is what I
well?
was actually coming to. That as the incoming governor, I want to tell Nairobians that Nairobi is for all of us, irrespective of our ethnic backgrounds, and we need to keep peace. because everybody needs the neighbor. The most important person to everybody is your next door neighbor, because when you don't have fire, you have to get it from your next door neighbor, irrespective of where he comes from. Therefore, peace is not an option. It's just it has to be there. And according to me, I have changed Dandora, which was a chaotic place. There were so many crimes in Dandora. Right now, Dandora is a peaceful place. What people don't know about Waititu is that I'm also a peacemaker. Waititu is a serious peacemaker. What happens to me is that I insist that the right thing must be done, irrespective of what somebody has to do. But the right, we must achieve.
Radical.
Radical measures must be taken to achieve whatever the right results are supposed to be.
Okay, but before you recall that I asked you each to have a question for each other. What is the question that you most want to put to the other? Let me start with you, Evans. What is the question that you would most want to put to Waititu, who has said he's a peaceful man and a peacemaker?
Can we ask Nairobians to buy more helmets during your tenure as the governor,
Oh,
if you do win?
Yeah. It's a good question, because maybe you are wondering. But what I would like to tell you, Kidero, is that I'm not new in public service. I've been a councillor, a deputy mayor, and also a member of parliament. What I can only tell you is that some people misunderstand me. But for those who understand me, they are very happy with me, and I'm sure that now, when I'm a governor, I'll have the law on my side and I will give orders. But what I know will be different is that I'll be very, very strict with making sure that whatever is supposed to happen is the right things are done on time.
The question that you've been asked by Daktari is, are we going to have a stone throwing? Is this what Nairobi will be? And
the stone throwing, Julie, honestly.
Yes.
I would even like you to know the whole story. But let me tell you, if somebody grabs a school land that has 3,000 students, to me, that is a very big thief, and the way to get rid of that thief is by all means, including chasing away.
Including throwing stones.
To me, any measure can be taken to clear somebody who has taken a piece of land that 3,000 students from poor families are learning. To me, is that important. Because if there were no public schools, like myself, who came from the slums, could not be here.
Your answer to him was honest. You actually said we may need some helmets.
To me, what I want to tell him is that I took those measures because I didn't have the power of the law to give orders.
With the reformed judiciary, are you confident that things will be better?
To me, I think they will be better.
Okay. Your question, please, for Daktari. Your question. What would you ask him?
I think you have asked me some questions that I did not expect from a friend. But let me ask you also another one. You are in court because of a scandal that concerns land in Busia for poor farmers. Is that to me? Yes, I do. You want to perceive me as somebody who do not have integrity because I was fighting or I was behaving in a certain manner. But you being involved in a scandal that concerns a land of over 2,000 acres belonging to some poor farmers, to me that is not integrity. And I want to tell you, just a minute, that Kenyans or even some Nairobians have been trying to fight me because of what I behaved. Forgetting
but pose the question.
So many people have grabbed or have rooted this country.
Pose the question.
To have rooted this country. Mr. Kidero, why are you entangled with poor farmers?
Why are you entangled?
A piece of land.
Tell us about
this
this
scandal.
Thank you. Let him answer.
Can I just, Mr. Waititu, actually, it's not a case, it's a petition. And there's a difference between a case and a petition. And the background to it was that there was a company called Busia Sugar Company. which was supplying cane, and the farmers were supplying cane to Mumias Sugar Company through Busia Sugar Company. So we would pay Busia, and Busia would pay the farmers. Busia had a farm which was 846 acres, not 3,000 acres. Probably you mixed your hectareages against acreages, because one is exactly 2.5 times.
So there were how many hectares?
2.5 times the other. It was 343.50 hectares, which works out to be about 800 acres. So when the farmers were not paid, when the company went down, went under, because the directors of the Sugar Company misappropriated money, they did not have otherwise. We had to get them to continue farming. We had to go to the board, and the board agreed that we pay them by agreement and by approval of Kenya Sugar Board. And in exchange, we would charge the title of that land. The land was not farmers. It belongs to Busia Sugar Company. So we paid them an extra 75 million and charged the land. After 4 years, the money had not been paid. The interest had risen. The land was not charged in Kidero's name. It was charged in the name of Mumias Sugar Company for having paid farmers. So when money had not been paid, you exercise and you borrow money, Ferdinand, so you know what the banks do. So when the money could not come, Mumias Sugar Company tried to sell the land. Then there was intervention. That's why there was the thing went to court. I did it as a managing director. It was not in my name. I'm out of Mumias. I'm out of the issue.
Okay.
Management is dealing with it.
Gentlemen, I stop you there. I stop you there because our time is absolutely up. Thank you for asking each other and posing your questions. The final thing I will ask each of you, if you are defeated come March 4th, will you accept, if you would look at each other and just tell us, will you accept should the other win the election come March 4th?
For me, it's about value addition. It's about making a difference in the lives of Kenyans.
Will you accept?
I will.
You will accept. Look,
so long as
look at your contender.
So long as
Ferdinand, will you? If you are defeated at the polls, will you accept that this is the...
I'll gracefully accept the defeat. I will shake his hands.
Thank you. Shake hands.
And I will be ready to work to accept any appointment from him. And if I win,
you have a job with me.
And if I win, I'm also going to appoint him.
You give him okay. There's negotiating going on Sunday Live tonight. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We really appreciate you coming in and sharing your thoughts with us and tackling some of those tough and uncomfortable questions here on the show. And we wish you both all the best in your efforts. And just a reminder, please, to always tell your people who support you and are looking at, seeing you as governors to respect the rule of law, to respect the nation of Kenya, and to ensure there's no fracas, basically, on our streets. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie, and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Sunday.